What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore. Before we get into this episode, make sure you hit subscribe so that way you can get more content from us. In this episode, I talk with Adam and Kate Feit, who are the power couple in strength and conditioning. The pun is intended. These two are coaches, they are educators, they have their PhDs. They're essentially some of the brightest minds in the field of strength and conditioning. Right now they work at Springfield College, and through the two of them, they help educate the undergrad and graduate students. They run a fantastic strength and conditioning department at Springfield College. If you don't know about the Springfield Mafia, you're about to learn. So whether or not you're going to admit it, I'm going to deem you both the power couple in strength and conditioning, okay? I don't know if other people have said that. Thank you for coming on the show. You both are busy, but yeah, you're the power couple in strength and conditioning. I'm going to deem you that, whether you're going to take that. So thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you having us. I don't know how Doc and Meg Stone feel about that one, so I'll let you hash that out with them.
I'll handle it with them. My question, and I have wondered this since Logan talked to me about both of you and how positive an impact you had on his life. How did you both meet? Because this is to be in Springfield and to have all this, and we know that career as a strength and conditioning coach isn't easy. Is it easier or harder when your spouse is in it too?
Depends on the time of day, Coach. But it's a great question, and I would love for MK to take the first crack at this, because we tend to change up the story as it goes, depending on who we're talking to. So
of how we met?
Yeah.
So
and then not only how you met, but is it better or worse having your significant, and I know you can't really, hypothetically, so let's go.
Sure. So Adam and I actually met at Springfield College. We did not start dating at Springfield College. Let me make that very clear. I was a GA in the weight room when he was a junior and senior as a football player.
Okay, because I was like, wait a minute, why the distinction? Okay, that makes sense then.
Unfortunately, the world we live in, coach, athlete, relationship. So have to be very clear there.
So Adam was a punk undergrad exercise science football player who called me out when he got his CSCS before me, called me out when I put straps on to demo a very heavy hang snatch. But I was also one of the only GAs that had the confidence to go up and correct his form, because for whatever reason, he was intimidating, mostly because he would call us out in front of the team. So that is how we met. But I had a lot of respect for Adam as an athlete and an exercise science student and someone who was really invested in the field of strength and conditioning. So when he left to take a GA position at the Citadel, and I was still a GA at Springfield, he would send me programs and talk shop and ask me questions. And so we formed a friendship after he left. And then we started dating when we both ended up as strength and conditioning coaches at the University of Louisville.
Gotcha. Huh. Yeah, I couldn't follow the whole path of where y'all been, because truth be told, this is a little bit of a fanboy moment, is when Drew Wilson talked to me about Adam and was he essentially said that Drew said that Adam is the definition of what a coach should be. And then I was like, geez, who is this guy?
When did he say that?
2000, he was either 12 or 13. And I was like, geez, I've never heard of this guy. I got to look him up. And
he should see me now, Drew Wilson. I'm waiting for your phone call. It'd be good to see you.
Yeah, he was talking about your dedication, and I was just like, wait a minute. And then you were, working for the Panthers at the time. So we'll start with you, Adam, and then MK, go to you. But can you talk about your career progression and journey? Because we have listeners at every part of it, intern, young, aspiring, and head, so they can gain some good practical knowledge from hearing about your paths.
Yeah. All right. I'll try to keep this short, because as you and I both know, the older we get, it seems the journeys get a little bit longer. I will back up Mary Kate and say that's almost 100% true. So we'll stick with that and talk about the little details she missed out at the conference. But so, I started at Springfield College as an undergrad. I was here, had no idea I wanted to get into strength conditioning until I snapped my arm in half my senior year, a week before our first game. Talked with our athletic trainer, found out there was a career in training kids and athletes and becoming better versions of themselves. So I grew up pretty local to the Springfield area. I met Mary Kate here, but started my coaching journey as an undergraduate, helping out in the weight room with Coach MK and her staff, and all the GAs like Drew Wilson was here, a variety of great coaches along the way that have really paved our way as coaches. and did a couple internships. So I worked with University of Connecticut for a semester there. And then I did my big fieldwork experience, over 600 hours at the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista. So that was awesome because we were right in the middle of World Championships, getting ready for Beijing, and came back to Springfield for a semester of football my last year, and then hit the ground running. So from there, took a unpaid coaching position with Joe Ken at Arizona State for the spring of 2007. That led to a graduate assistant coaching position at the Citadel, where Mary Kate and I started talking a little bit more professionally and helping me craft my own coaching journey. Was there about 10 months and got the opportunity to go back, work with Joe Ken at University of Louisville. He had left Arizona State. So I left the full-time GA to make it to the big show and work in the Big East at the time. And so I was there for 2 years, working with University of Louisville football, 2008 and 2009. Staff changeover, was very fortunate to be one of the only coaches retained by the next staff. I had an opportunity to go become a head coach. So in 2010, became the head strength conditioning coach at Eastern Michigan University. Did that for a year. And then again, another door opened that brought me to the NFL. So I was in Carolina Panthers for 1 year and then decided to pivot a little bit. So Mary Kate and I were married at the time and shortly expecting a family. So we ventured into the private sector, where we operated Reach Your Potential training with Bobby Smith and his wife, Sharon Wentworth, combo PT, return to play and athletic performance center. And did that for a number of years. I think we were there for about 5 years till about 2017. Springfield College called us back and had this great idea that they should take 2 young adults with a brand new family and make them go through doctoral studies to hopefully teach here someday. And it's worked out since. We went back to school in 2017, finished up in 2020. Mary Kate ended up getting a full-time position right away. And I continued to work online with Precision Nutrition. And by about 2021, I got the coaching itch again, helping out on campus as much as I could with our programs, and started a garage gym inside the pandemic. And that blossomed into us getting kicked out of our garage gym and finding a space. So now we own and operate that, small, 2,000 square feet, but very successful with that. We've got a great community here outside of the Springfield area in Wilbraham, Mass. So we own and operate TF Performance. We run seasonal programs. We've got over 200 kids in our program now, which is primarily run after school. And so we balance our coaching journeys there with our adult clients, our kid clients, with our full-time responsibilities as spouses, parents, and professors. So That's where we're at.
Were you and Dermody together at Louisville?
We were, yes. I was actually one of Dermody's groomsmen. Yes, not the best man, but
really?
Yeah. Funny story on that. MK and I fly out to Iowa. Our son this was October, so maybe Cody was 4 months old. Yeah. We get in like the dead of Iowa winter at like midnight for a rental car, and we travel. It must have been a mile in the cold to the rental car place. And we pull up and there's a zip car, like no back seat, no trunk. Like we're clearly holding a baby in a baby seat. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me right here. But yeah, I think Dermody was awesome. That's where I got into strongman and really challenged the way I was doing things in programming. But yeah, Derm and I spent 2 years together at University of Louisville.
Wow. And speaking of his wedding, the reason that I went to my honeymoon location was because of Dermody and where he went. So anybody listening, and if you guys ever find some time to actually take another vacation, El Dorado Seaside Suites, fantastic spot.
Okay. I'll put that on the list.
It's gourmet, all you can eat. And he said, listen, you like to eat, it's all you can eat, and it's actually good quality food.
That's a trigger for me. We did our honeymoon at Sandals in Jamaica. And it was during the lockout season with the NFL. So we didn't really know when it was going to break, if it was going to break. And all you can eat, great resort. We're not big drinkers. So we did have a swim up burger bar and a water slide. And I gained 17 pounds during the honeymoon. And I knew it was bad when Ron Rivera came downstairs to the weight room to check in on us. And he looked right at me. He was like, whoa, honeymoon was good, huh? And I was like, I just feel it. Like I'm bloated, coach. It'll be good to go. But good to know. We like to eat.
MK, how about you in your career path? Get CEUs faster, cheaper, and more convenient than ever before with Strength Coach Network. Hey, it's Justin, here to tell you about how Strength Coach Network can now help you out with our premium membership and CEUs to the NSCA and CSCCA. Upon signing up for our premium membership, you will get 2.0 or 10 CEUs immediately. That is an entire year's worth of CEUs that you are able to access from the convenience of your office. No traveling for conferences, no waiting on flights, no eating out, no expensive hotels, just the good stuff from great coaches. Now, if you need extra CEUs for past years during the reporting period, we can bundle Fundamentals 1 or 2, which also come with 2.0 or 10 CEUs to your purchase. That way, you're able to take care of your CEUs for the best price, most convenient, and learn from some of the best coaches. If you want more help with this, email us at service@strengthcoachnetwork or visit us at strengthcoachnetwork.com, and I would be delighted to help you out.
Sure. So I entered the field really young. I was a soccer player growing up, and I was really good when I was young, but I was also really tall. I'm 5 feet tall. So I grew really early, really excelled in the sport. And then when everybody else started to catch up, the head of my soccer club recommended I started training and recommended a gym. At the time, it was called, I think, Athletic Acceleration, but it quickly got switched to Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. So I started training with Mike when I was 13. And by the time I was a gym rat, let me go backwards. My first time training at Mike's gym, got in the car after, cried. It was terrible. I'm so bad at this. It's so hard. It took a week for my mom to get me to go back. Second time I get in the car and she said, how'd it go? And I go, that's what I want to do when I grow up, Mom. So I became a gym rat right away. By the time I was 16, before I even had a license, Mike hired me on staff. So I'd get there in the morning and he would be finishing with the Bruins. He would have me post stretch them. And at the end of the day, I was helping warm up the Harvard football team that was training with us. So I got a lot of experience at a very young age training youth athletes, professional athletes, Olympians, our interns. The list of people who interned under me, I like to say they interned under me because I was paid hourly and they were unpaid interns. The list is obnoxious.
Brajesh Patel, Strength Coach of the Year.
Of these people that interned under me, and I was just like this little punk kid that at the end of the day, they thought it was really funny to have me tell the interns what the cleaning was at the end. I'd be like, oh, sorry, Brajesh, you have to mop under the urinals today. And I'm 16. So I was very lucky to get into the field really young and make a lot of really great connections. I worked there during the summers when I was 16 until I was 22. So many years working at Boyle's during the summer. I played soccer at Holy Cross. I got pulled into the D1 dream. We were terrible, but I really wanted to play D1 soccer. So I went to Holy Cross where I was a bio major. But knowing the entire time I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, I ended up volunteering in the weight room there with Coach Jeff Oliver, who's amazing. Got offered a GA position at Springfield College. So I went to Springfield for my grad school, was a GA strength coach of women's basketball, men's volleyball, men's soccer. And my last year I took over football, was a strength coach for them. Got offered a job at the University of Iowa, took a job at Iowa, was only there about a year before, a little under a year. I took a job at the University of Louisville, where I spent 3 years there. Most of my time was spent with sports like soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. And then Adam and I had been living apart for about 16 months when he got the job at the Panthers. So I ended up moving to Carolina with him, honestly, with no job, just like, all right, I'm going to move there and figure out what I want to do. So I reached out to a couple colleges, reached out to private sector. I ended up finding a private sector that I really enjoyed working at. Work there while we're at the Panthers, and then we switched. This is where our journey is now the same. We switched and we went to Reach Your Potential training, and then we came back to Springfield to get our PhDs. I was a PhD student here for 2 years. By my third year, they had hired me on as a faculty member. So my last year, I was a full-time student and full-time faculty member, and then have been here ever since. I'm now the director of the Strength and Conditioning grad program. So that's been fun.
So you're
no, he's our fieldwork coordinator and I'm the program director.
So like on paper. On paper.
She does have meetings and I have to read the agenda. So that's where we are right now.
Adam does work a little bit more with our undergrads where I focus more on our grads, but we do crisscross for sure. So we work with both students.
Bravo on the deflection question. My question for you both is, what makes Springfield so special? Because whether if you're listening to this and you're a young strength coach, you don't know, or maybe you're learning, the old heads are like, yeah, Springfield cockroaches, they're everywhere. What makes it so special? Because there was that Iowa football pipeline where we had just intern after intern that wound up getting a job. Joel, Pete, Remus, like the list goes on and on. Did it start with Dr. T? Did it start with you all? Just talk about what makes that such a good experience, because as we worked on with that internship best practice document, there's a gap between what is taught and what happens in the real world. But it seems like that gap doesn't exist at Springfield. And I know rose-colored glasses, you're in it. It might not seem the same, but that's my long-winded explanation of enlighten us on what makes Springfield so special.
I'm going to talk more specifically about the grad program. And then Adam, if you want to pipe in about the undergrad program,
Sure.
Just because our experiences were a little different. One is just Springfield College. I hear it's called the Mafia a lot. I take a lot of pride in being from Springfield College, but most importantly, Springfield College strength and conditioning. So I think that tradition and that legacy is really important. Our grad program actually started with Dr. Margaret Jones. She originated the program. And it was this idea of strength and conditioning as a graduate program, it was brand new. Maybe we were first. I'd have to look back at notes and the history of, but she took this program and really launched it. And she was really the one that started sending these grad students out. For us as a graduate program now and historically, we feel that a lot of strength and conditioning graduate programs are exercise physiology programs with a strength and conditioning class or two. We are not that. We are a strength and conditioning program with an exercise physiology class, right? So all our classes, or not all, most of our classes are very focused on coaching and more of the practical side. We expect that our students come to us with that base knowledge already so that we can really focus on more advanced programming, but also coaching practices, how to coach, how to be an effective coach, how to communicate with sport coaches, how to communicate with athletic trainers, how to oversee interns. So all those other pieces beyond just that base exercise physiology. So really, Dr. T often says we're more of a coaching major than a physiology major. With us, you do 3 internships. Now it's transitioned to 2 on-campus internships and 1 off-campus internship. So you're spending over 600 hours on internships just within our curriculum, right? We have classes that are held down in the weight room. They're hands-on classes. So just very practically based. We do a lot of calls with experts in the field, right? To talk to our students, to learn more about what they're doing at different job sites and what their expertise is, really leaning on our network a lot from an educational standpoint. And then I think the last thing is because we're considered this kind of elite graduate program, we can be really picky about what students we bring in. Right now, I'm the person who makes that decision, and it's all about passion and drive, right? I want to see that your grades were good enough in undergrad for sure, but I want to see that you've coached, you've volunteered, this is what you want to do when you finish, but that you are driven and passionate about what you're going to be learning about. Our students will talk about something in class and I'll run into them 3 hours later and they're still, I'm going to say talking about it. They're really arguing about it, right? Like those arguments and those discussions are ongoing all the time. So from a graduate standpoint, it's all about that hands-on learning and that passion and drive, and the students just always pushing each other to learn more.
Said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Taking a quick break from the show to talk about one of our sponsors, Team Builder. I've been using Team Builder since 2019 when I was at Towson. I still use it with my remote athletes. I also use it at Goldfinch, which is the private sector gym I train at, and we use it at Centennial, which is the high school that I'm working at. Now, if you're printing on lift cards because you say, oh, I can't afford Team Builder, guess what? Team Builder has a pre-written grant that you can locate on their website. You simply change the name of you, your organization, and the areas that they highlighted, and they can help you get Team Builder at your facility, your university, whatever it is, so that way you can optimize how you train your athletes with this software. Now, Team Builder is also a part owner in the Plyomat. The Plyomat is something that I utilize at Goldfinch, and it helps you be able to see how high somebody jumped, the ground contact time, and RSI. You can get all that conveniently right there. You can reach out to your rep from Team Builder to be able to get more information on the Plyomat. It's fast, it's reliable, it's convenient, and it's trusted by coaches worldwide. Check them out as well as Team Builder in the link down below.
I've used this quite a bit in like our own recruiting days for our undergraduate program, but keeping it simple and coach talk, like I think about the 3 E's, which is the education that we provide, the experiences our students get, and the environment that we create as professors and coaches. And so at the undergrad level, so that's where my journey overlaid with the grad program. I'm not a graduate of the SC Mafia. I work within the program, but I was an undergraduate major and Dr. Margaret Jones was my advisor. So I got a real sneak peek of, can I help out in the weight room? And after she left to go to George Mason, that's when Dr. Brian Thompson, who's now our director of strength and conditioning, really started to take the program and make it his own as well. And so with the education at the undergrad level, we can't be as strength conditioning specific, but where we are ahead of a lot of schools is now with our Cascade accreditation through the NSCA, and a lot of our program is a very selected track. So I coordinate that for our students that by their sophomore year, they're like, no, I want to go into strength conditioning. And I'm like, all right, this is how we're going to do our schedule. We're going to take psychology classes so you can understand or attempt to understand human behavior. We're going to take some PE classes to make sure that you can teach and you also understand motor learning and development. And then it's the capstone courses of, you're taking strength conditioning with me. I teach sports nutrition. You're taking all of these other components of wherever strength conditioning leads you. And I commend MK, especially for this at the grad program. A lot of people, and we had this conversation, I think, in Colorado, where you think Springfield strength conditioning or strength conditioning in general, you're thinking automatically it's college or bust, right? It's about wearing that logo, and it's about where's the next job. You're online thinking about who knows who, what coaching tree. And through our own experiences, we know that it's a lot more, right? Between private sector and tactical and professional, there's just so many opportunities now. So we bring those experiences into the classroom for their education. Like the grad program, our students, and we were one of the first programs that did this, is they have to do about 90 hours. And that's a really introductory fieldwork experience. I did mine at UConn. I knew I wanted to be a strength coach. It was all good. But a lot of our students, they do this their junior year. Is it strength conditioning? Is it personal training? Do I want to be a chiropractor? Do I want to go into physical therapy? So we get a head start on the whole experiential process because, like anything else, you go to college to become an expert. You're getting a specialized degree. And it's not until that junior year we're like, okay, all the gen eds are out of the way. Let's really dive into this. And so if the 100-hour doesn't work out, and sometimes it doesn't, we still have another 400 hours as their senior capstone experience. So we're in that right now, this coming up semester, this spring. We've got over 50 kids going out, and all they have to do is intern. And so they're doing 400, 500, 600 hours. They'll take an online class to supplement their learning. But before you leave your undergraduate program, you've got 500, 600 hours of coaching. And I think that's what really sets the foundation for if you're trying to get into a competitive program. Like, yeah, we'd love to have you in grad school, but do you have any coaching experience? So I'm proud of that. Of our students leave our own bachelor program with a lot of hours in the racks, on the fields, and so forth. And so that ties into the experiences that they get within the network that Dr. Jones, Dr. Thompson, and any other coach we've had. You talked about Drew Wilson. He was my first college strength coach. And again, the experience I had there, I was like, yep, this is it. Then I ended up training under Dan Nickel, who's at University of Minnesota, worked with Mike Kamal, who was at Merrimack for a number of years. And so you find out, as big as this industry is, it's also very closely connected. And all signs, or most signs, point back to, did you know anybody at Springfield? So we're able to bring those experiences of our own coaching experiences as active practitioners, which I think a lot of universities and colleges miss, right? You get the person that goes to school the whole way through, they get a doctorate, or whatever the essentials book is spitting out, and then they just regurgitate that. And we're able to take the information that we should be teaching and saying, yeah, that's great, but that's actually not what happens in the real world, okay? How do you manage a group of 50 kids, right? Or what happens when your assistant coach or your interns don't show up? So everything from coaching operations to logistics to flow to the conversations that you're having with your sport coaches, which is what the grad program does really well. You're a head strength coach for 3 to 5 teams, and you're going to be the one reporting to those coaches as if it was a full-time job. And so the experiences that they get, tying in not just lecture, but the labs. We're very fortunate with the support of the grad program. We've got access to a lot of great equipment, from velocity-based training to a variety of different GPS and force decks and whatnot. When we're creating this last piece about the environment, it's really, in your words, Justin, that all-inclusive resort of how can I learn and how can I grow, but also how can I connect and get experience with everything that's happening in the world? Because there was a period for a good amount of time where a lot of people thought going to Springfield was enough. Like, you're getting coaching experience, right? You're writing programs. And then we hit that wave when sport tech and these other types of avenues started to come to fruition of, you can't just come to Springfield and coach. That's not enough. And so how can we raise the bar to provide those additional opportunities for those coaches to thrive? And so when you have all that in a school that's less than 2,000 undergrads and 1,000 grads, our offices are literally like 3 doors around. We know our kids. And so that small college feel, We're on group threads and chats with all of our graduates and getting the latest and greatest, but also helping them thrive after their first job, how to take the next job. Her and I, the DMs and texts that we're getting now about, should I do this? Should I do that? What about this? And it's really an experience like nowhere else. And we see a lot of coaches, we see a lot of students, and we ask them about their experiences. And what we provide here is really that student-centered, that athlete-centered model. And we just tie in our own twists on it in terms of higher education.
Logan's a product of that. I worked with Logan, and one of the projects that he did was where he had to, I think he had a website of him coaching, and it helped where we're like, wait a minute, we're in the interview process with this guy, and we literally are watching him coach and interact with these athletes. That was huge.
Yeah, that's a big piece for us right now is every student who's graduating from the grad program creates a website where they can show, videos of themselves coaching or sample programs or just showing the advanced work that they do. At a lot of schools, you might be a GA, but to be a GA and be a head strength coach for 4 to 5 sports, that doesn't happen. So the grad students who are coming out of our program, they've had that experience of the hardest job I ever had was when I was a GA here, having 4 or 5 sports versus when I got to Iowa and I had 2. And I was like, what else do I do? So that's like a big piece for us. I want to just piggyback off something Adam said. He mentioned as when he was a football player, all the GAs that he worked for. I think that's where some of the magic happens and why I'm so proud. Even though I work mostly with our grad students, I'm so proud of our undergrad students as well, because I really feel like the undergrads who are exercise science and our student athletes, the experience they have working under these young GA strength coaches and seeing, if you're an athlete for 4 years, you get to see 4 different programming styles. Maybe not the best for your physical development, right? But from an education standpoint, seeing all these different coaching and programming styles while you're there, having all these different mentors, I think that's amazing. And that's what drove me to come back and be a professor, is because I thought about what am I most proud of in my career? And what I was listing was all the students who became strength and conditioning coaches who were my athletes, or I taught a couple classes as a GA, or my students in those classes. When I was looking at the Brian Hesses and the Connor Hughes and Caitlin Quinns and George Greens and all those people who were my student athletes and then all of a sudden became these big time strength coaches. And I was like, shoot, I want to create more of them, right? So I think those undergrad students, the learning that they have by experiencing all these GAs and the GAs giving this mentorship back to the students. Adam and I became professionally friends because of our experience as me as his GA and him as a student athlete, and then him getting a GA position somewhere. That's happening all the time. Like that network and that cross between our undergrad and our grad program, I think makes our program really special for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely unique. And I want to double tap on what you just said there, though. Like, how do you handle that duality of, okay, what's up, everybody? Taking a quick break from the show to talk about one of our sponsors, Hawken Dynamic. I've been using Hawken Dynamics ever since I was at Towson. Still utilize it today when I'm at the private sector at Goldfinch. Even brought the plates from Goldfinch over to Centennial to do some force plate testing with the football team there. We've done force plate testing with other high school athletes. It is something that you need to get. If you want more help with it about how to practically use it and you want to reach out to us, feel free to reach out to us at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com. Not only do I utilize it with lower body assessments, I use it with upper body assessments, plyo push-ups, prone Y assessments. You can also utilize it for what I call an upper body isometric mid thigh pull, where essentially you're doing a push-up at the strongest range and you're pushing into an immovable force, so a barbell, same way you do an isometric mid thigh pull. Like I said, been using them for years, valid, reliable. The customer service is fantastic. Go check out Hawken Dynamic in the link down below and you will not be disappointed. Let's say somebody is in charge of this sport, and I'll give you an example. At Harvard, before Frazier got there, it was Fitz. Fitz did everything from the floor. Frazier comes in from Iowa. Iowa, we didn't do anything from the floor. Now, and Mullen was a constant. And now it's, hey, Mullen has to tell all these coaches that they were pulling from the floor. Now they're not. How do you go from things of that nature where we're never going to pull from the floor, we're only going to pull from the floor? Then what if somebody wanted to come in and be like, hey, we need to go all machine-based and we're going HIIT training? Like, how do you all be like, let's pull the reins back a little bit?
Yeah, we have some, so our GAs now, they don't become a GA till their second year. It used to be you could be a GA your whole time, but we switched that. So the first year they're sitting in class with me learning about programming, right? So we're getting on the same page about programming style and programming terminology so that when they become a GA, there is at least a base that exists with everyone. That being said, we definitely allow them to figure out their own programming philosophy. I would say that every single one of our GAs this year programs a little bit different. Every single one of our GAs last year programmed a lot different, right? So there is definitely a dynamic where the athletes are exposed to different things each year. We have created some standards and they're loose, but like this is a team that front squats. Like you're a single leg only coach. Yeah, but football is front squats. So like football needs to front squat even though you only want to rear leg elevate them. So we do have some teams that there's kind of certain rules within because we want to be able to track changes over time. But I would say, I don't know if our student athletes realize, that this is maybe a negative that their programming philosophy is changing so much over time, but they're young and they're getting strong and they're getting faster. So they're pretty happy with it. But yeah, there is definitely, that's something we're balancing all the time is like, how do we create the best situation for our student athletes while also allowing our GAs to really develop their own programming philosophy and putting their own spin on it every single year.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. I think when you understand Springfield College, Springfield is largely driven by young coaches. Every sport coach has one or two GAs helping them run the program unless it's a bigger team. So we've been really fortunate, especially the last couple of years, to have a really great relationship. And we're talking Final Four teams. Our football team was Elite Eight this year. We have championship volleyball, national championship volleyball teams. And so this is the way, like they get it. They lose coaches and they understand. And some coaches are better than others, like everywhere else, right? But if you can sync up with a great sport coach that understands it, they're going to take the time to mentor our students, which is, I would say, just as important, if not more important, because eventually that might be a coach that you tie yourself to, whether it's that coach specifically or that type of coach when they go on and become a specialized strength and conditioning coach that we see more and more these days. It's really a testament to how Springfield itself with athletics and the service that the education provides of this is how we do things. Like we're a student-driven type of performance program, and this is how we're going to get it done.
I want to talk about the Rad Dad, and I forget what's the name of the mom group. Mom. I was like, I know it rhymes, but I have just no idea.
Big on alliteration. So
Rad Dad Bomb Moms, like what you guys were able to do during Christmas with presents, super awesome to see. Not only that, but talk about, because we have, again, listeners in private sector college, what is the differences and how can you make the private sector more a little bit like college, or how can it make college a little bit more like private, because there's pros to each and we can learn from each.
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this because it started with my unhappiness, to be quite frank, having a degree in the field and getting sick and tired of writing my own programs and having the best garage gym. Shout out to Powerlift for the hookup on that, guys. Appreciate it. But I got to a point, this was 2021, post-pandemic-ish. And I'm like, we didn't really know anybody in town. We're in our late 30s at the time. And everything was just be at home, be with the kids and not really knowing anybody. And I said, you know what, let's create a group. We had moved into our facility. And so I said, all right, I'm going to run a 12-week beta program, completely free, where I'm just going to post on a Facebook forum in our local town and saying, hey, I'm looking at your classic catchphrase. I'm looking for 10 to 15 guys that want to gain muscle, lose fat, and take control of their life. Classic, like John Goodman, Personal Training Institute stuff. And it hit. And so what I did is, all right, we're going to go 3 months. Just the fall, we'll go Monday, Wednesdays at 5:30 in the morning till 6:30. It's 100% free. The only catch is if you miss, and this is where, how do you get college into private sector? You're going to pay, right? I don't want people just to do a free program, but if you say you're committed like you are in college, you're good. But unless you have COVID, unless you have a family emergency, if you miss and no show, no call, instead of doing barrel rolls down the hill or inchworms for 100 yards like I used to prescribe, you're gonna give me $100. And believe it or not, I had over 20 guys in that first cohort. I think I made a couple $100, like nothing big. And it was awesome. And I got to write things I haven't been able to write. And I actually started to give credit to people like me now of, hey man, we're a little bit older. Like we can still squat, we can still clean, we can still deadlift. We're pushing sleds. And it was an awesome 3 months. And I was like, all right, that was good. And then everybody was, can we keep going? And I was like, I got to talk to my wife about that one. I definitely not for free. So we played around and I talk about breaking the fitness model, but I was like, I'm coaching, I'm lifting. Why don't we make it real cheap? So each session is less than $10 a session with us, but we're in there with them. And so I started a monthly program there. And then a couple months later, some of the wives and other moms in town, they were getting a little jealous and they're like, what the hell? So I had to coax MK.
This isn't fair, no.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point about, and I was on a call earlier, but about accessibility, right? Like it's a natural safe place for a young male to go to the weight room. And when we talk about ACL epidemics and whatnot, about what type of accessibility are we making for other people from different genders and sexes? So I'm like, she had a great point. I'm like, I can't coach every day. So MK, again, did a beta run with her group. And now we have almost 50 adults. So parents of our kids' teammates and people in town that we get after it. And it's been able to not just pay our bills, it's been able to pay our bills and more, like with our staff. And so Monday, here's the commitment though. It's Monday through Friday. And I'm there Monday, Wednesday morning before classes start. She's there Tuesday, Thursday morning before classes start. And then we're there on Fridays. But by 6:30 a.m., everybody's done. We're back at the house by 6:45. Kids are on the bus, breakfast is on the table, and then we're out the door on campus by 8. What I've appreciated the most about it is the friendships, is the sense of a new identity. Because you get older and you're a parent, right? You become known as your kid's dad or so-and-so's brother, and you forget like who you are. And so now we're in a small town, but you can't go anywhere. You can't go to Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Home Depot, Target without seeing our logo and what we're able to provide for the kids. So now we're training the parents, then the parents talk, and then they tell other kids and other people in the community. And it's been a great run so far. So I don't know how long it'll last, but we're going to keep it going as long as we can.
How about for you on the Bomb Mom side? You came in a little bit later on it, but same premise, trying to bring college world to the private.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was a little against running the Bomb Moms. One, as a strength and conditioning coach, I rarely was in a room with all women. And that like scared the crap out of me. I was like, that's a lot of women in one room. I don't know if I don't know if I'll fit in. Like,
it's better than a group of all dads. I'll tell you that much.
Like, I don't really know how to talk to that many women. Like, it was like a little outside my comfort zone. I also used to compete in Olympic weightlifting like back in the day, but I am a like heavy set, sit down for 3 minutes kind of person. And I was like, nobody's coming in for that. So I just
taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Powerlift. I used Powerlift when I was at Harvard, Maryland, and the University of Iowa. I was also part of the staff that had the new weight room at the University of Iowa, the 32-rack, beautiful facility. I was a part of that. I also have Powerlift's equipment nowadays. Powerlift Strong, made here in the great state of Iowa in the great country of the United States. They're able to work with you on any customizations that you need, logos, height, whatever it is, the limitations that you have. Their equipment is strong. The people there, they're very good people. Check them out in the link down below. And if you have any questions on how to work with them, reach out to us at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com, and we would be delighted to help.
Start writing programs like a team workout, because that's how it's run. We run TFP like a college team, right? We all warm up together, and then we have our A block, we have our B block, we're pairing exercises. Again, a little against it at first because I thought I was really good at training in the garage gym, just really good at doing a heavy set and sitting down. So now with the Bomb Moms, I would say that I'm back and joints actually feel better. I'm a little bit fitter. Basically, all those exercises that I didn't prescribe for myself because I didn't like them were probably the ones I had to do. So now, because I'm prescribing exercises for everybody else and myself, I'm doing the stuff I don't like doing as much, like core. So that's
mobility.
Warming up. So that's been really good for me physically. I would say talking to a bunch of women isn't as hard as I thought. We just make fun of our husbands and then talk about our kids. So that's worked out well. Connecting college to private, I would say one, again, we run our sessions the same way we would run team lifts, and that's been fun. I think the other thing that I find, one of the things I loved about college strength and conditioning is you really felt part of something, right? You felt part of a community and you wore the gear and all that stuff. You felt part of a team. And I feel that way with TFP because a lot of the moms, their husbands also train, and then their kids also train, right? So we've become very much, there are families that we have 4 or 5 members of a family all training at TFP, right? Again, like Adam said, you can't go anywhere without running into not only a TFP member, but often a TFP family, which is cool. And it's created our own team within our community, which has been really neat of that. Again, wearing the logo, which has been kind of cool.
And we built on that. Like, she's got a Bomb Moms group chat. We have a Rad Dads. We have an adult swim chat. We do golfing tournaments to benefit local charities. We do the Rad Dads Open. We had our big holiday party. We always talk about all these trips. We got people going to games. I was able to get one of our adult members. He's a big Notre Dame fan, and he was out for a game. I reached out to Coach Landau and I was like, Coach, I got a guy, midlife career change. He just wants to see the facility. So had an amazing day. But like, that's what's been awesome about being part of a team, because we definitely miss that, because you become so engrossed in your own personal team, right? Mom, dad, and kids. And you forget why you stayed in college as long as we did. And even if it was, they're going to pay us in muscle milk and hoodies. Now we can charge for the muscle milk and make some money on the hoodies. So it's been a really great piece of the psychological, of like relatedness of, I am who I am, but I'm part of something bigger than myself.
How about taking that same premise and applying it to the PhD work and in academia? How do you make it where the whole premise of our show is to try to make strength and conditioning not boring anymore? Because it can be dry. Mm-hmm. How do we make it not dry so that we can engage the audience, but also not become people that don't actually talk about the hard sciences? And yeah, I'm looking at my book, like therapeutic exercises for musculoskeletal injuries.
Good one.
Sometimes you got to read those. So like, how do you balance that duality?
I'll start with this one really quick, but I often talk about how what makes our program unique is we're not talking about case studies. We're talking about clients. We're talking about real athletes. And that's what is a leveraging point for us. And we have to do evaluations every year. And that's something that comes back always to Mary Kate and I's eval is you live the mission. Like, you operate a gym, you go to conferences, you still know the lingo and whatever's happening. And so we're bringing in as much, this is real life, into the classroom, because you're right. You can't get it after reading a couple pages of this book or diagnostic manual, or, hey, we still have to read research. But let's talk about how we can apply this. And here are some lessons that we've learned. So we almost flip the model. Sometimes instead of looking at the research to guide our decisions, we're actually going to go the opposite way. We're going to talk to you about all the decisions we made and see if any of the research actually made sense, because we needed to at the time, but also learn from those experiences. Yeah.
So in my classes, I take a topic and then I break it into like pieces. So we'll take a topic and I'll be like, okay, let's experience it. So let's all go do it. Let's read the research on it. And then let's listen to, like, on a podcast, or read on an article or blog, or watch a video recorded lecture, what practitioners are saying about it. So we take all these pieces and we want to do it. We want to learn from the research, but then we want to learn from the practitioners. And then based off all that, then you take your own experiences and then we discuss it. So that way we're not looking at something of just the research or just the anatomy or whatever. We're looking at it from all different lenses and then coming in. And for me, I think that's the magic in the classes, right? Is now let's actually critically think, right? And think about it and then make a decision. And your decision might not be the same as my decision. And welcome to strength and conditioning, because it all depends. And that's okay. And that's one of the great things about strength and conditioning is it all depends, right? So there's no right or wrong. There's definitely wrong, right? But there's a lot of rights out there. And I think that's what makes it fun and engaging, and it changes every year. I teach a technology use and strength and conditioning class, and I will never be an expert in that class because it's different every year, right? But it makes it fun, and I'm learning from the students. They're learning from me. I'm creating learning environments, but I'm not the expert, and I'm learning every single day as I prepare for that class. So I think that's what makes strength and conditioning really cool, is that it's not cut and dry.
I know we've already said Drew's name a lot, but he was one of the big reasons that I actually did live that out. When I was at Maryland, he was like, hey, go and learn something new. And it was like, cool, read your book, but do it on a topic that you're not familiar with, and then go train that modality. So that's where I went like full triphasic training. It was like, all right, what is this? Let me try to figure this AFSM or whatever it is out. And then it's okay, that was the original book written by Cal, but hey, now I have my spin on it based off of me and my anatomy and who I am, and then how I can incorporate it with a small population of the team. Okay, now I can incorporate it with a larger part of, okay, now this is what the book says, this is what I feel for myself, and this is for this group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think what I've noticed more so Mary Kate, because she works really more in that preseason role, a lot of our coaches are strongly, and this is a call to action. So if you're hosting interns, all right, wherever you are, know that how you're training your athletes are impacting your intern's philosophy way more than you think. And so we would see the same thing when coaches that I would have, they would go to Iowa for the summer. And then we would get the, Iowa summer program as part of our off season. And I'll never forget it. Danny Nichols doing it. And Dr. Jones was like, Danny, these are Division III athletes. Like, they can't do 1,000 Supermans and a med ball complex and jingle jangles. Like, you got to tailor it down. Right. But our students, when they come back in August, they're so strongly influenced by the last internship that they had, because it's a big one, right? They're so moldable, they're pliable, and it really opens up a great opportunity. But it's also a challenge because, like you said, Justin, and Triphasic's a great reason, right? I'm teaching advanced strength conditioning concepts next semester. Triphasic 2 is out, bought the book, talked with Cal and Dr. Mike. A lot of people do the thing without understanding the thing, right? Or they read the latest book, but they didn't read the books to help them understand what was happening. I'm digging deep, right? People want to talk about conjugate. I'm like, did you read Science and Practice? Do you understand Zatsiorsky? Triphasic, is it really what it says it is, or is it just a spinoff of something else? And so I welcome the challenge of getting them to understand, hey, try it, do the thing, but let's think about what your spin is and how you can be able to apply this to Division III, to a high school, and so forth.
Within that world of, and I'm going to quote Jeff Moyer here on making sure the coaches do their homework. And he would be like, hey, this is something that it was the 4 coactives from Cam and Fergus in their process books. But when I went and reread block periodization, it's literally right there on page like 6. So it's, man, if we're not doing our homework and reading these texts, what are some of them, or some really important research articles for our listeners out there to go back on and revisit that you've gone through?
I would say it's a good question, because unfortunately in academia, they always put it on us of, is it recent enough? And and sometimes we forget, like, the classics, right? So again, I go back to Doc Stone, right? And Bill Kramer and Gregory Half. I go back to Charlie Francis training methods, right? I go to Al Vermeil, right? I go back to these original practitioner-based.
What's up, y'all? Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, Vitruve. I've been utilizing Vitruve for a while now, and I absolutely love the convenience of this app. The encoder is at a price that you cannot beat compared to the competitors. Also, I don't personally like the camera apps. I've known that they continue to break down, and I really enjoy having this encoder attached directly to the bar. Vitruve does that. Not only does it do that, but it'll show me velocity loss during the set, shows me average velocity, all of it right within the app. Not only that, for the app on the individual athlete, there's a Vitruve Teams app where now, as the coach, I can see all the results from my athletes. I can API that into my team builder, and now everything that I'm trying to do, get better competition, better intent in the weight room, I am able to do with Vitruve. If you want more information about them, click the link down below, or you can ask us questions directly at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com, and we would love to answer those questions for you.
Manuals, right? Whether it's a Surin or Bondarchuk, these are those areas where students aren't getting, because, again, even though the information is so bountiful between YouTube and private resources and blogs and things like Simply Faster and Strength Coach Network and whatnot, where is that homework? Where were the bricks laid? And I have to uncover that. And it's going back into my PDFs that were probably copied illegally when I was a GA or an intern in the offices of these schools, because it's like, oh, and you go back to that, right? So I think that's important. It can go as far back as like Poliquin, right? When we're talking about tension and eccentrics, so I'll have a better answer for you after the semester, because I got to do some of my own digging in the attic and garage gym of figuring out, like, where did all this stuff come from?
I think it's always just back to, like, why. Each of our GAs, they get to be the head strength and conditioning coach for their sports, but they need to get every single program they write approved by either myself or Dr. Thompson. So when they come in with their program and I look at it, I'm like, all right, first tell me about it. And they'll tell me what they're doing and why. And anytime they use a fancy word that someone wrote in a book, I say, tell me what that is and why. Like, how do you back that up? And how much did you match what they said in the book? And if they tell me, oh, I did exactly what the book said, I'm like, that's terrible, because you're not training the same people. It's asking them why and making sure they can really support their answer. And I think that's the key, because you can mimic, like, it's definitely okay to mimic, and young coaches should mimic, right? They should go experience something and write something similar. My first programs, they looked like a Boyle program or like a Coach Oliver program. So mimicking is okay. Copying is not okay. Copying is different. Copying is when you read something and you take it and you put it onto your paper, right? Where mimicking is you experience something, you saw something, and you put it on your paper, and it's different, right? So just pushing them to make sure that they're not copying something or they're not doing something they haven't tried or seen done. Of course, we want them to be creative. And at some point, we want them to try something out or take pieces from a bunch of different things and stick them together. But they just need to be able to justify why they're doing it. And again, that's one of the things that I think makes us special is because we're asking those why. Versus you go out and you get your first job, your head strength coach doesn't have time once they hire an assistant to ask them why they're doing what they're doing. They're too busy coaching their own teams. So I always say we're like their parachute. Like we're here to let them jump, but make sure that they don't crash.
Within that world of why and pushing back, this is something that I started working on last week. If I hit share screen, this one, can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this is the OG proliferance chart. I'll zoom it in a little bit more. But so right here, we're talking 55, 65%. I'm kind of like, really? Only 6 reps in a set? I don't know if I'm believing that. Same thing with like optimal 90%. Because this was OG, not like team sport athletes. So I put this one together. I'm like, all right, if you're a team sport athlete, like realistically, you can be doing, you could do 18, because if we start talking 1x20 here. But like I'm calling optimal when you're in a team sports setting, if you're in season, like hitting 2 reps above 90%, that's a win if you ask me. Mm-hmm. No? And this isn't even taken into account in season. Yeah. If you do 1 rep above 90% in season,
that's solid.
That's a win.
Yeah. And I remember like back to the OG, because we did a jump training product. And the original chart comes from managing the training of the weightlifter. And so this is a great example. And I'm glad you brought this up. This is a great example of understanding reps and sets progressions without understanding the context. Because A.S. Prilipin was looking at thousands and thousands of weightlifting journals and trying to find old school velocity-based training, right? At what percentage and at what rep within the set was the velocity low enough where it wasn't producing explosive strength? And then all of a sudden they get that copy. But then Louis Simmons gets that copy and then modifies it again to fit powerlifting, and then and so forth. And so this is a great example of, I use Prilipin's chart. I use Prilipin's chart. I use relative intensity. Yep. I sandwich them both and can use that. But where did that all come from? It's knowing the history like you've demonstrated and getting them to think, like you just said, you're going to train, whether it's a base GPP or like you said, 1x20, you might be doing a lot at lightweight. Prilipin says, I can't do that. Prilipin was looking at something different. And do you have to use Prilipin chart if you're in a base strength cycle and you're doing your big 3? So that's a great realization.
Fact, like I would have a younger strength coach that I work with at Towson, where they were like, oh, we're coming in and it would be completely this chart, and it'd be like, hey, we're going to hit the high end of 90%, like 10 reps. I was like, you realize they just came from a 2.5 hour practice. Mm-hmm. That's not 90%. Like you're not even having to do a warm up, because they came from in the same building, practice ended, they went to the weight room. They're gassed. This is not just Olympic weightlifters that were on some really good restoratives when these charts got made. So it's like taking it with that grain of salt. And like I put down at the bottom, this is also assuming that there's no eccentric or isometric tempo added, because the minute you start doing that, it's a brand new ball game.
Yeah. And when we actually had a grad student a few years ago give a great presentation. He found, again, through experience, that like every second of an iso or eccentric that you added to the traditional tempo, it was actually decreasing the load by about 2 to 3%. So if you're writing a 4-second eccentric, and you're saying you're usually doing that at, I don't know, let's call that 82.5%. You know what? You might actually want to put on there 77.5 or 75%. And then we see those things with relative intensity. Hey, it doesn't take in consideration your second set, your third set. What happens if you do an open set? What happens if it was, and I grew up learning the tier system. What happens if you're doing that total body exercise and it's the 4th exercise in the day? How does that impact your volume and your sets and your reps? So a lot of great things about MK saying there's a lot of rights, but you also got to understand like what does make it wrong.
That's true, especially when you're living in that world where, hey, there are lots of rights, and if you have your reasons and you can safely make sure the athletes are training, you want to make sure that you are swimming in that end, because strength coaches listening out there, we have a responsibility to help, keep our athletes on the field so that way they're able to do the thing that they love. At no point during, at least I don't think so, at no point if you're in college, are these athletes and their parents taking a tour to come and learn how they're going to lift with you and then also get to play the sport. They're coming to play their sport, and we are just part of what they'll be doing when they're on campus. I think it's a great place to let you guys both go. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to share with us. I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys in a couple of days. This will come out afterwards. It'll be fun catching up in person again.
Awesome. We appreciate you, Justin. And on behalf of the entire industry, I can honestly say I'm glad you're in the position that you're in now, because a lot of impact and influence can come from this platform. And we're glad that you're at the head of the realm here. So we're wishing you the best and excited for the future.
Thank you very much, brother.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching that video. If you enjoyed it, click right here for videos just like that, and make sure you click here to subscribe to our channel. Have a great rest of your day.